Hey TV fans, Bored now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about Stranger Things 5 Chapter 4. The episode is called Sorcerer. Most watched episode of Stranger Things so far, and also the most highly rated on IMDb. Come to expect, because we've reached a fever pitch with the show and we're really ramping up for the big finale of the show. Chances are that'll be broken by at least one other episode this season, probably the finale if I had to guess. Sure about the episodes over Christmas, obviously a lot of people will watch them, but maybe they might not be quite as watched just because of it being over like the actual festive period, but we'll have to wait and see in any case. But yeah, not really surprised that this has got such a high rating. It is a very good episode, a very dramatic and gripping episode to send us off into the midway point ahead of Volume 2. As always, I've got some complaints, like we do ramp up with this big battle towards the end with the reveal of Will and Vecna and that big standoff and all the children. How just amped up and epic everything is right now. Not everything, because there's definitely been things this season that haven't been that, but like in general, when you get to these big set pieces and like a big moment in the show, like it's come in terms of the scale and the budget a long way from season 1. But in any case, I think a lot of that stuff at the end of this episode is well done, and it is a great cliffhanger to leave you off waiting for Volume 2. But probably at times there's a bit too much going on, so that might be a complaint that I have about the episode, and it becomes a bit scattershot because you've got so many characters involved. Yeah, maybe that could have been like scaled back a little bit, and it probably feels a little bit with some of the antics in the bathroom scenes, I'll just call them that. Then maybe some of that was just, okay, we're just giving these characters more to do, and you're getting a little bit here with this character, that character. It's not a massive thing which is going to like bog down the episode. Probably the only other nitpick I might have is, and I don't even know if it's a complaint so much, but the way Joyce is talking about Derek in this episode and bigging him up quite a lot, and one of the funny gags and running gags of the episode is of course Erica on brilliant form as always, constantly calling him dipshit and running him down, and it's fun to see her now fully on board with the gang. Constantly ribbing on Derek and trying to put him in his place was very funny and kind of sweet in a way. The thing in the episode with Will is that at one point he lacks confidence that he's really that important, then he can be as important as, say, someone like Elle, or then he really has these powers, this potential. And you get a nice little scene with him and Mike, where Mike is like talking him up as someone who's got special gifts, and I think even describes him as like a wizard. And it's been a good season for Mike in that, like the way he gave Holly that pep talk back in episode 1. So I think the stuff with Joyce and Derek goes to that. Like, that's a theme of the episode, and in that sense the episode does that very well, and it all comes full circle. I think it just stood out a little bit that maybe Joyce was almost speaking for the writers, because if they're planning like spin-offs and like Derek could be part of a spin-off, it was a little bit like Joyce is egging him on and bigging him up, because there's several times she does it, and that feels more like, well, we're talking to you, audience. At the moment I'm a bit lukewarm on Derek. Like, I think he's one of those characters that could go either way. Like, I'm not quite sure yet how good the actor is, whether he's just fine in the role because he gets to play quite close to maybe who the actor is in real life, being still quite a young person, like quite a bratty sort of teen. Bits where he grates a little bit, like early in the episode when he's moaning a lot and just being quite grumpy, but then when he gets more involved in the mission and stuff and he kind of has his role, then I think that's when it's a little bit more okay, I can get into this a bit more. It's a very good episode, very enjoyable, very gripping. So I'll probably start with the Elle and Hopper stuff because they finally infiltrate the military base. You see some pretty brutal stuff here because Elle is quite happy to break a couple of necks, at least one guard's neck, to this big standoff, and finally Professor K, Dr. K, gets her big scene like Linda Hamilton, and it's good because that's been a little bit of a niggle at me so far. Then she keeps having just the one scene in each episode before this, and it feels like a little bit more of a cameo. And I guess it is a cameo. I just was hoping they might have done a bit more with her. But I'm happy that they give her a good amount of screen time this episode, and that she gets to have the big standoff with Elle and Hopper. One thing which is a little bit random and might be another nitpick is then they do tease that Hopper's gonna sacrifice himself and in this episode, because at one point he put a vest on. He's kind of running through the corridors and he shuts Elle off in the other section, and the idea is that he's willing to like sacrifice himself to get to this gate. Soon cut to the next scene and find out that it didn't come to that. He was able to get to the gate, but I think that's the idea, is that he was willing to blow himself up to allow Elle to get to the gate. People who have this long-standing complaint that this show is a little bit squeamish about killing off main characters, that may be a little bit of a complaint, especially since it's a fake out and then it comes to nothing very quickly. At least with someone like Max, you can say, well, they're building a whole storyline around it. It goes to his character, then he would be willing to do that and put himself on the line. It's just because it was quite a dramatic scene, and then it was quickly revealed that no, he's not going to die, which I never thought he was. I was never totally convinced. The gate, but before they do, they have to go through all these guards. And Linda Hamilton gets to Elle first, and then she traps Hopper in like one of the aliens that she's been doing experiments on. So like he's in like this case, or it's in this cage, and it strangles Hopper, and she keeps turning the heat up and down. So that's one of the things, is it reacts to heat. So the hotter it is, the more tense it gets, which means it's gonna, increase the pressure on Hopper's throat, and she's using this as leverage. Really good scene. Like Linda Hamilton is very icy and sinister, and she gets to play the full-blown villain in the scene. Like, she's very good in the scene. It's a great standoff, and it's a nice little payoff. And eventually Elle comes back and is able to save Hopper. I wasn't quite sure if this was the last for Linda Hamilton. Definitely gets wounded quite badly, but we don't see if she actually dies. Like, they might have just knocked her out. To see a bit more, because it would be good to have more Linda Hamilton, but it was a good scene anyway. Like, this episode was a strong episode to showcase her. The big reveal when it comes to the gate, because I think we all guessed them probably it wasn't going to be as simple as it's Henry being trapped there, and it didn't really make sense because at this point we've seen Henry and what he's been doing with Holly. But the big thing is then it's Callie from season 2, the lost sister. And we even get a flashback to season 2 and the meeting with Elle, just to confirm who it is. She's the last of the subjects, the experiments. And it definitely makes sense, and they would hold her there, and that it would be of interest for the government, because she does have similar powers to Elle. And you could almost sort of read it as they plan to use her powers against Elle, like if they wanted something to fight Elle. I don't really have a big complaint. Like, I think for some people it might be a bit of an eye-rolly scene, because of course that season 2 episode didn't go down very well. there's been speculation for a long time that it was only really there to set up a potential spin-off. Now, I'm not sure what happens now when it comes to that, whether maybe they're reintroducing her as a gateway to a spin-off because season 2 has been so long ago now. I don't know about that. It could be that, or it could just be then they feel that then there's a part for her in this plot. So even though I'm not too hot on that episode in season 2, and even though so far I haven't been blown away by Callie, then I'm fine with her involvement here and as a reveal, and there's definitely things you can do. So I'm willing to see where it goes, and it's quite a nice reveal that does make sense. And as long as they don't bring a gang back, that's what I'll say. Because Callie, even though I didn't love the episode, she was probably the better of the characters they introduced in that episode. Her gang I really didn't care about. The potential then she could still be like an adversary for Al, because she does have those sour grapes because of Al not backing her up in that season 2 episode and deciding to desert her and go back to Hawkins. So you might still reveal feelings there. You could have a scenario where maybe they work together to save Hawkins and the world, but then there could still be like a clash between them later on. Joyce trying to be the one to explain things to Derek, and there's some fun like humour here about how from his point of view it's like, you're just psycho kidnappers, and it's like, yeah, I can see how you would see that. But Joyce tries to paint this picture of it's actually like the government who are liars. Because when Will's name comes up and he uses the term zombie boy, which I think does come from another season, but it's just like an ugly nickname Will was given. And Joyce points out that's something that comes from the government, and I think she says the media, but it's something which doesn't really have any have any place in reality. Like, Will is actually a hero, and that's just the stereotype he's been painted with. Makes sense, and Joyce is the one to try and talk to Derek as like the older figure in the group, but it also makes sense and he wasn't gonna bite straight away. Like, he does that classic trick of okay, you've convinced me, but as soon as they untie him and like don't scream, he tries to flee the barn, and this is where you start to get the stuff with Erica and the rest of the gang surrounding him, trying to talk him out. And you've still got this rivalry back and forth between him and Erica, which is lots of fun. Because her calling him Dipshit is so fun. It's good when she puts him in his place and is kind of like, listen up, Dipshit, because this is important. But yeah, the stuff in the barn is very enjoyable and very well done. There's some good action there. At one point, the Demogorgon breaks in and becomes a threat. And then that leads to another potentially exciting plot, which is when the group with Nancy, Jonathan, Steve happen to get back at that moment, so they chase it into the Upside Down, which is another fun visual as they just... It's one of these exciting visuals where they just make it into the Upside Down before it closes up. And so now they're in the Upside Down searching around for this thing. So once again, we're getting season 4 vibes a little bit from this, where you're getting like groups separated in different areas and they're all trying to play their part. So these characters talk about doing their bit from in the Upside Down. Radio communication with them and Hopper, and his reaction when he finds out they're in the Upside Down is pretty fun. The climax of the episode at this base is because the military decides to bring in children, and they bring in the children who they believe are at threat from Vecna. So it's their way to protect them, but of course, with this being Stranger Things, they're probably making it a little bit worse. And we get a cameo for the teacher, once again, Holly's teacher, who I only mention because she is like the real life teacher of the Duffer Brothers. from when they were back in school. So that's another lovely little bit of trivia. Joyce's group start building this plan. Robin gets to shine once again in this episode, where she's again cracking on the pop culture reference. So the Great Escape Plan, Tom, Dick and Harry, with extra focus on the Dick people. Let's not forget about the Dick. So it all involves like sending Derek in as like bait, and because he's one of the children, he'll go undercover and infiltrate the base. And there's lots of fun little quirky details, like him having a walkie-talkie in with his lunchbox. The idea is that he slowly gets closer to the kids and tries to talk them into, this is what's really going on here, you're at threat. So you've almost got this idea of like these kids starting to come together. These other kids, the likes of Lucas and Mike, are like sort of going underground and bursting up and breaking into like the pipes and coming up from the ground, so that they've got like a hole to pull these kids out. So the idea is that Derek gets these kids to like the toilet area so they can all escape. But of course it's not going to be quite that simple. The military catch up to the Joyce group, and they catch up to Derek, and they get a bunch of them. Will's there at that point because he's kind of tunneled his way into like the bathroom, so he gets captured. And we've got some key characters who are captured. A lot of the children have technically escaped, like they make it down into the sewer system, and Murray's there with Robin there waiting in a van to like smuggle them out. So some of the kids get in the back of the van and are starting to be driven away. Demogorgons, being controlled by Vecna, burst out, and this is where it's sprawling all over the place. But the visual of the multiple Demogorgons is fantastic. That's a great moment, and just the threat of them and them chasing the van, them crashing the van. Lucas is still down in the tunnels. He's one of the ones who it looks like his days might be numbered. But anyway, Vecna makes his move and he takes out a bunch of military people. So we do get quite a lot of deaths in this episode, even though it's not like what you would call like massive characters. Vecna has control over Will. He draws him closer. He's got him in some sort of a trance. And he explains his plan to him. He explains that to use all these different kids as like conduits to shape the world in his own way. It's Will's time to shape up, and this is where the Sorcerer of the title comes, because he stands up out of nowhere and his eyes go white and he summons all this power. And yeah, it seems that Will, not surprisingly given his past, does have a fair bit of power himself, and he actually fights back against Vecna, and he uses his like telekinesis style powers to fight back against the Demogorgons and save his friends. And eventually Vecna, he retreats, so they're obviously saving that big battle. We get a tease of it, but saving the big battle, probably between Will and Vecna, till the very end of the season. Now, my guess is you might get Elle involved in that too, so you might have Will and Elle harnessing their powers to fight Vecna and try and save the end of the world. So it is an excellent end to the episode and cliffhanger. Like, it's very dramatic. It pays off the stuff with Will that they've been planting so far this season, and just the shot of Will's eyes in the fire, I think it's fantastic. So it's all very well done. Like, it leaves you on a good cliffhanger. Is the Max stuff, which we do get a little bit more of this episode. Max and Holly is strongest stuff so far of the season to me. So we get a lot of flashbacks. She takes Holly to a cave and she explains to her that this cave is a safe place where Vecna / Henry can't get to them, because in one of the flashbacks from before, we see then Max takes refuge in the cave and Henry is coming after her, but suddenly he can't get to her. And she says it's because this cave represents a bad memory for him, so he can't do that. So you're building more mythology when it comes to she was in the Upside Down all this time in like a dream world where she was haunted by Vecna every day. And we get a lot of like stylish stuff. I think Sadie Sink does a good job with the voiceover explaining the story to Holly. And again, it links up to the theme of the episode where Joyce has to try and convince Derek then he can be something special. It's trying to convince Holly of something, trying to convince her then, hey, I'm on your side, whereas Henry is. Like the stuff where Holly uses the analogy of the Winkle in Time book as a way to like sum up what Henry's been trying to do. So that was a nice little analogy. That flashback, the 150s, but it had like a teenage Joyce, basically. It's just a way to show him observing Joyce in the past, because that's the idea, is that Max is in his memories. So at the points where she's trying to escape, being blocked off because Vecna's trying to stop her, she can hear the Running Up the Hill song calling to her from like the real world from Lucas. And just the visuals of it and the drama of her trying to run and make it to the exit in time to represent her trying to come out of the coma. I really like that stuff, and it doesn't quite work out, of course, like Henry is able to block her, and from that point of view she's kind of then on defense and trying to keep away from Henry. Some promising stuff with that. I know it's been a little frustrating because the Max thing has been very slow burn this season, but the stuff with her and Holly so far I think makes a lot of sense and is quite exciting, and I do wonder if maybe if you're talking about potential victims, maybe it could be Max's fate, then she might be in the Upside Down or in like the dream world forever, and that could be a fate to maybe help out like young children. Episodes 2 and 3 are the best episodes of the season so far. This was a really strong mid-season finale, but I'm into it. So far so good for the final season. So that's my thought on Stranger Things. Let me know what you think of this episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. Support the channel monetarily at patreon.com/borednow, or become a channel member at 3 different tiers with a variety of perks and exclusives. Also hit the hype button because it helps smaller channels like me get out to more eyes. And you can also make a one-off donation at PayPal or a super chat. So lots of smaller ways to help the channel as well. But let me know what you think of the first part of Stranger Things chapter or Stranger Things 5. And if you want even more Stranger Things talk, then I am doing a live stream tonight. So it'll be me and Madison Esters, who's now quite a regular on this channel. We're going to be doing a live stream later on when we will be running through all 4 episodes so far and giving our thoughts, so you'll have even more of an in-depth discussion there. But thanks guys, keep watching TV, keep watching Stranger Things, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
This whole time, everything we have ever assumed about the Upside Down has been dead wrong.
This isn't like one of your campaigns. You don't get to write the ending. Not this time.
We stay true to ourselves. Stay true to our friends. No matter the cost.
After what we've been through, this thing, it ties ties us together forever.
Wherever this blood leads, I need you to fight one last time. Let's end this, kid. Mother of God. You die, I die.
You die, I die.
We never stood a chance. We failed.
This is not over. Not by a long shot.
It's time for new.
I don't know what's on the other side of any of this. If we want to stand a chance of surviving, we need to be a team.